At its simplest, I am a I'm a poet who knows how to write code. My qualifications are, 1, I'm a poet, I'm a published poet, and I'm also a mechanical engineer or also a software developer. I got interested in it because I'm a science fiction fan. Have been since I was a kid.
Raising one bastard species after another, dropping them into an ongoing explosion, saying, make your way, after sashaying down the eons to drop off a load of kids.
And when I came back to Atlanta to a very vibrant poetry scene, this was it was kind of sort of like the heyday of Afrocentric literature and poetry, trying to bring my interests and my experiences onto this stage. The only way I felt I could do it was by incorporating science fictional elements into the my experience as an African American male. Poetry is a form of technology. It is the most advanced form of the use of a language, any language. Poetry originally was just spoken or sung, in some way performed orally and just passed down.
Among the cradles of sweet Lynette, a dance swirls, held by a ghost in gale. Fear dares not enter, her fingers laced, insidious winds by earth's touch trace.
A big theme that I have is of translating non artistic data, things that we don't normally think of as art, like weather information or biology, blood pressure, pulse, and taking elements of those and incorporating them into artistic forms. I basically tell these systems some rules around which to use that data. Take E. E. Cummings, uh, the type of poetry that depended not just on the printed word, but the fact that you could use a printing press to manipulate where the words were on the page to go into the realm of audio, reel to reel tape. Well, what happens if you take a recording and physically chop the tape up into pieces, rearrange the pieces, and then splice them back together, and then run it back through the tape? That's essentially sampling. And usually the idea is they take large amounts of text, hoovering up data from the internet to figure out basically what word is more likely to come after another. And one of the big problems with that particular method of training is consent. The organizations that created these models and performed this massive amount of training didn't ask anybody, and that's something that has not really been addressed yet. Another problem, there is the issue of, from the point of view of a publisher, that if somebody presses a button and creates poem after poem after poem after poem, and then decides to, flood the literary market with AI generated poems, this becomes a logistical problem. At first, when this was happening, a couple of literary magazines actually stopped taking submissions. They needed to figure out how they were going to deal with this. One way that you can use it is to help you generate ideas or take something that you're already working on. It basically helps you as part of the creative process. The other way is that you have this tool that now gives you the opportunity to create poems that normally you just a regular human being would find difficult to almost impossible to make. Some examples of that would be take, the weather in a specific city anywhere in the United States, and I would take the pressure that day for that city, and anything within a certain range is going to translate to some form of sense of taste that you have to incorporate into the poem. If I'm going to create something, I try to go by a fairly simple maxim of, in order for the poetry that's created to be considered mine, I have to be in the creative loop in a significant way. Actually, the few literary magazines that are accepting AI generated works, one of the main criterions that they're asking for is that you show what you did. If you basically said, hey, random large language model, write me a poem in the style of Langston Hughes about a generation starship and put it in the form of a villanelle, you might get something that you like. And then let's say, oh, this is really cool. I want to submit this to a literary magazine. The question comes down to, did you actually write that poem? If all you did with the piece was stop at that point, then the model is the author. I mean, what I consider ethical use is transparent use. Okay. Show your work, be honest. If you basically say what I did is either AI generated, either in whole or in part, and this is the method by which it was done.
Yeah.
If you do that, if you do those two things, I would consider that ethical. Now, as for whether the training of it violates copyright, or whether AI can truly embody the human experience in terms of writing poetry. Okay, I'm going to leave those questions to the philosophers and the lawyers. But in the meantime, this tool exists, and I am a tool using animal, and I'm going to learn how to use those tools.